Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the world famous podcast, Beating the Press. Your two hosts, myself, Ty. We've obviously got the brilliant Kristian with us as well. For those viewers and listeners who are tuning in by accident, hello, welcome on board. I'm hoping football is your kind of thing because that is all we pretty much talk about. For our regular viewers and listeners, hi, welcome back. So today's podcast will be a continuation of our a look back at previous World Cups. Obviously, with Qatar World Cup coming up this year, what we have decided to do is have a look back from 1990 all the way up to 2022, which is this year. So this podcast will be us having a look back down memory lane at World Cup 1994. It was the first time USA hosted the World Cup. And it was, for me anyway, the first time, and yeah, I have done it a couple of times after, for the first time I ever cried after a game of football. I was 13 at the time, and it's the time I really fell in love with Italy as well. And I sort of nailed the colours to Italy's mast anyway. So just to start off, Chris, we're going to go with the same format as we've done before. Just what we remember from looking back. The winners, we'll have a look at the winners. We'll have a look at England, obviously, because what they want in that one. Spoiler alert. We'll obviously have a look at Italy from my perspective as well, and any players or moments that we sort of look back and think, yeah, that was iconic. So I'll start and pass over to you, Chris. What are your initial memories and thoughts of '94?
Yeah, well, obviously, those of you that don't know, if it is your first time, Ty is actually an Italy supporter, and I am an England supporter. And I mentioned on the last World Cup podcast that was really the first time I ever watched a football match. It was the England v Germany in the 1990 World Cup, and it was the first time I watched a football match, and it got me interested in football, and that got me started playing football. And then I think back to my memories of 1994, and they were absolutely non-existent until I got refreshers, because the reality is England didn't make it. It was the first time England, well, I think it was the first time England hadn't made it in a couple of World Cups, maybe. And being new to football and watching football, because back then, like, all the matches weren't readily available like they are now. Now you can just go online, you can stream a game. Obviously the World Cup was on the BBC, and it makes me wonder why I wasn't thoroughly interested in the World Cup. But the reality is that England didn't get there in the first place, and that's where we should probably start. I don't know if you remember much about the qualification process that year. Obviously, we had a decent group, but two of the teams that I remember being involved, which played like a key role, more so the Dutch and San Marino, which I remember being the last game of the tournament, last game of qualifying. And of course, we went to Amsterdam needing, I think it was a point in order to qualify. It was the second from last game in the qualifying stage. And we needed a point from that game, and I've got the England team.
Is that the one? That, if I remember right, is that the one when they go through, Ronald Koeman pulls him back? He should have been sent off.
It is, yeah.
He didn't get sent off, and it's the one where they did. For those of you could probably Google this. It's a Channel 4 documentary on Graham Taylor, and there's a phrase that he said, "Oh, do I not like this?" And Koeman should have been sent off. There's a free kick around the other end at the edge of the box. Ronald Koeman stepped up and he put it in the back of the net.
Yeah, he dinked it over the wall.
And he was like, I can't remember the comment. He's gonna dink it, or whatever he said. He's gonna scoop it, he's gonna scoop it. He's done it. Yeah. And then that was just like, yeah. So that I remember that one vividly as well. Just that was because of there was like a behind the scenes look. That was almost like a all or nothing before all or nothing was a thing.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it was like you say. I think it was David Platt. David Platt went through. It might be in the first half, and Koeman just yanks him down, and it's one of those ones where it could be in the box, could be outside the box. And I think it was inside the box, and the referees essentially pointed to the spot. He pointed to the spot, apparently gave the penalty, and then within a couple of minutes later, he's decided that it's a free kick outside on the edge of the box. And then Koeman to this day still says, I don't know how I got away with it not being a red card. It was the yellow card. And like you say, just as luck would have it, he went on and dinked it over the wall. But then it went into the final, the penultimate, like the actual final game of the group. stages where England needed, I want to say 7 goals. I think it was 7 goals, and they needed the Dutch not to win. And I don't know if you remember this as well, but the San Marino player scored after, I think it was a world record at the time, might even still be the world record, after 9 seconds.
Yeah.
And obviously, we all know San Marino's record, so it was absolutely brutal at the time. And I've got the team here, and it's quite familiar to a lot of us who were, born in the 80s. It's got and it was a good team. So Seaman, Dixon, Pallister, Des Walker, Pearce, Ripley, Paul Ince, David Platt, Sinton, Ian Wright, and Les Ferdinand. So, it was a good team. And they conceded early on. They ended up winning the game 7-1, which was never going to be enough. But the Dutch they ended up winning the game, but the Dutch were drawn at half time. And so unfortunately, England didn't make it. And I think, these days that's totally unheard of, that England don't make tournaments. So I think it might have been since then. Have we made every tournament since then? So,
yeah, I think 2002, 6, 10, 4. I think so. Yeah, they did 20. Yeah, they did. They've made every single one, haven't they? Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine that back then, this is probably the least remembered World Cup by England fans. So I think that's the type of thing where you try and kind of choose another team to support. And I think my family allegiance back then with my grandparents was Republic of Ireland. Obviously, it's kind of the reverse, where I think they qualified for 2 out of the last out of 3 back then. I think they qualified for the World Cup 1990, and then 94, and then they haven't done so well since. So I think I pinned my stripes on them, and obviously they came up against your guys in the group stages.
Yeah. So I mean, just to give a start to so it was the first time the World Cup being held in America. For those of you that remember, and those of you who don't, you can on YouTube, there's probably had about 1 million views on it so far. So Diana Ross was opening it up, and she had a job to kick the ball from about my hands. Probably, I'm not exaggerating. I know we're looking on camera, so it's probably from there to there. And then the aim was to score in that goal, and then the goals were just going to fall apart. So she's shot from there, but she's missed the goal, and the goal's massive. And then the guy's like, and then she's missed it. And I met the guys thinking, I'm supposed to press the button here, and the goals are supposed to kick. And he's like, what am I supposed to do here? I mean, to be fair, he's probably made the right call. He's made an executive decision. He's pressed the button, and it's gone, boop, and the goals broke as well. And she's thought, I'm just going to carry on performing. So she carried on with the thing and dancing. But that was a start, and you're thinking, America don't quite get it yet, do they? But then the football started. I mean, opening ceremonies are what they are.
Yeah.
And then the football started, and obviously Italy was the first one for me, and they played Republic of Ireland. And Ray Houghton, I remember this day. So long ball's not back. Ray Houghton smashes it from the edge of the box on the volley over Pagliuca. And I still think Pagliuca could put his hand up, but he sort of goes half, and it goes in. And Ireland end up beating Italy 1-0. And then it just becomes an absolutely real. And then the next game, I think they played Norway, Italy, and they had a man sent off, and they're down to 10 men. And Dino Baggio ended up scoring, ended up being a draw, and they won the last game to get 4 points. And this was back in when the best third place teams qualified. Italy ended up finishing third, and then they qualified into the next round.
Because all the teams finished on the same points, didn't they?
They did, yeah. They all finished on 4, yeah. So Italy finished third, and then Italy finished third, and they qualified and they went ahead. And then you had like other teams. You had Bulgaria were a standout team for me as well, just because, and that's when Stoichkov and Lechkov and all these players sort of came to the fore and got a bit more exposure. Yeah, and then I remember Bulgaria would I remember everyone saying, Nigeria going to be, because they won like 4-0 against Greece, I think, and Amokachi scored an absolute thunderbolt from the box, top corner, and then brought the goal. And then you're watching all these new teams, and I felt it was like a really glitzy World Cup. Obviously, it was all over. America, it's the first time they're doing it. They know how to put a show on. They can't score from 5 yards, but they know how to put a show on. And then we just sort of moved on to the sort of group stage, the knockout stages. And for me, that's when it's sort of, I get now where we get older, and whenever there's like a really important game, you've got to win. And I started getting those feelings. And so Italy, I remember Italy played Nigeria, and this is a true story, this as well. So Italy played Nigeria. Nigeria took the lead. And I went and it was about 2 minutes. I mean, it must have been about 3-4 minutes before the end of time for 90 minutes. And our phone rang. And it's not the days we can just pick it up, but it was, you got to go walk to the hallway to pick the phone up. And there's no one else in the house. Well, there's someone else, but they're upstairs and not getting the phone. So I've got up and I've gone and got the phone. I'm trying to be good. And I know someone's got, my younger brother was there. And he was like, oh, yeah, Italy have scored. So I put the phone down, legged it back inside, and Baggio had scored. And it was just brilliant. And then obviously Baggio went on and scored in extra time. I think it was a penalty from him right off the post. And then that was Nigeria. Thanks for coming and goodbye. And that was a real unbelievable moment for me, because that feeling of ecstasy, elation, and relief, and understanding that feel, adrenaline, it's so much adrenaline is wasted because there's nothing you can do, but it's just the way we are as human beings. And it was that was the first time for me that I felt, this is what it means, like when you've got a all or nothing kind of game. And then we played Spain in the quarters. Where we had who was it? It was Luis Enrique got elbowed. And I think it was Tassotti who elbowed him when Luis Enrique was bleeding. Off he went off.
Yeah, it's quite horrific.
Yeah, and then we ended up winning that as well. Roberto Baggio scored again, and then the semi-final we played Bulgaria, and Roberto Baggio was just like, he scored one of the goals of the tournament where he's come from the left wing, cut inside, and he's killed it in. To the opposite, a bit like a Thierry Henry goal for the younger viewers, and he scored a penalty as well. And Stoichkov scored a penalty to make it 2-1.
Yeah, he was one of the players of the tournament. Well, I think he was top goal scorer in the tournament.
Yeah, I think there was Baggio. There was so if we go
the
back,
guy who scored 5.
It was Oleg Selenko for Russia. He's the one who scored all the goals for Russia. So there was Baggio, Stoichkov, and I think Romario might have got something as well. But yeah, so that was Italy's path to the World Cup and World Cup final. And it was just, we'll talk about the World Cup final in a bit, but that was just the path. And then the other sort of standout teams, I don't know what you'd remember, Chris, for me, were, I thought the Holland against Brazil game was just unbelievable. I think it finished 3-2 to Brazil as well, if I remember right. And Branco obviously went to play for Middlesbrough. Yeah. He scored that absolute thunderbolt with his left foot, didn't he? Just like the daisy cutter won it. It was right in the corner.
Yeah. I like, obviously, when, like, what we like to do is we like to look at the team of the tournament. Now, I don't know if there was one available in this one, but you can usually tell the tale of the tournament by the teams that are in the final and the semi-finals, and you think of the team that won it. Obviously, eventually, spoiler alert, Brazil won it. But I look back at that Brazilian team, and it doesn't make you think of the proper Brazil. I think this was the longest period that they went without winning the tournament. It might have been something like 27 years or something like that. And although they had, like, I think it was Romario, Bebeto, they kind of relied on players like, was it Dunga?
Brazil were a really interesting team. Now, they were probably the most defensive Brazilian team probably the last 30 years, and that's no exaggeration. So if you go through the team, they had Tafarel in goal, good. They had Branco at left back. They had Aldair and Marcio Santos at centre half. Cafu came on in the World Cup final, and that was the first time I ever saw him. And I'll speak about the final in a bit. So they had Cafu, they had Dungo as well. They had Mazinho, they had Bebeto and Romario, and Ronaldo R9 was on the bench, but I don't think he might have gone on. I don't think he got on. So that was a really, really defensive team. They obviously had two sitters, and they were really tight. They had the magic of the front two, who obviously got on through a lot. They also had Leonardo, who played at left back, but he got sent off against America, I think it was.
Elbow.
Elbow. He got sent off against America. So he obviously now the PSG technical, if he's still there, the technical director, or whatever they want to call him. So he was obviously there, and they had some real, obviously Brazil always have quality going forward, but they had a really strong defensive side, which obviously, spoiler alert, they were playing Italy, who were strong at the time as well. It finished 0-0 after 120 minutes. So that was just the Brazil team was just really good. And they beat Sweden in the semi-final 1-0 as well, which was a really tight affair. And that was class. And then I'm just
even Sweden had a good team. You think of it, was it Brolin, Darlene,
they had Larson as well, didn't they? Yeah, Henrik Larsson was there. They had, what's the other one called? The tour, Kenneth Anderson as well. Kenneth Anderson was there. There was some really, really good players, players will look back now, and those, especially those that play FIFA, you know, the icons players. So there quite a few of them would have played through that. One player that I'm just going to mention, I don't know if you remember, it was probably the biggest story, I think, at the start. We talk about group stage, and we'll probably skirted over it a bit, was Diego Maradona.
Yes.
So
yes.
There was obviously at the time, you know, we didn't have Twitter, we didn't have social media, we didn't have the news, the exposure that we've got now that you can find out everything straight away. There was. Can
you imagine how big that would have been these days?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about Maradona. There was rumours of Maradona doing drugs and all that sort of jazz, and it just come back. And he scored a goal against Greece, which was unbelievable. And he ran. You can YouTube it. He ran to the camera, and he looked at the camera. And if you looked into his eyes, you thought that guy's on drugs. Now you know you just look at it, and he just didn't look like he was there. Anyway. We must not be the only people that thought that. So the FIFA and they thought we need to have a drug test here, and they pulled him for a drug test. And shock, horror, spoiler alert, he failed it. So he was banned and gone.
Yeah, well, obviously he had the success with Napoli, didn't he? And then I think while he was at Napoli, 91, 92, somewhere around about then, he got banned for cocaine. I think he was taking cocaine. It was in the system, so I think he got something like an 18-month or 2-year ban, and then he went. I think he went to Sevilla for a little bit, and then went back to Argentina.
It was Barcelona, wasn't it? He went to Barcelona, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did go to Sevilla though at one point. It was only maybe like half a season or something like that, and then he went to the Argentinian team, and I think that's who he was playing for at the time now. I remember reading his biography, and he was 33. I want to say 33 or 32. Definitely not 34. He was 34 and under. And back then, 33 is pretty much a death sentence. You know, you're gone. You're way gone back then. It's not like these days where, you know, Ibrahimovic and Ronaldo and Messi, where they're still going at this age. And he was obviously on the decline, but it didn't show in the early performances. But obviously, that was because of the drug use, and like I think he said it was some kind of medical. It was a medical drug that he was taking. It was some medicine that he was taking, but they were like, yeah, but you've got like 5 different steroids in your system, so I don't think you can do anything. And it wasn't actually FIFA that banned Maradona. Argentina decided to get rid of him before FIFA gave any kind of sanctions. Yeah, so what Argentina didn't want to do, because they've done so well in the previous competitions, they didn't want that to be tainted if they went on to win it. So they effectively got rid of him before the end of the tournament, whereas FIFA told them you can keep him till the end of the tournament. But if you imagine that, Argentina went on to win the tournament, it would have been tainted if Maradona had, managed to play all the way through it.
I mean, we're talking about stuff, we don't really do a lot. We do a bit of preparation, but we don't do a lot of this off the cuff when we have this. And one of the things, and I can't believe we're almost going to miss it, and I've not now. So we've obviously got loads of Netflix documentaries and stuff now, so we get to know what's happened back in the day. And when I say back in the day, I'm talking 20, 30 years ago, when you're growing up and stuff, you might see the news. One of the most, until this day, I don't think there's been and I'm going to say a worse, horrendous, really sad story than Colombia played. I think it was America, and the guy scored an own goal. It was Escobar. I think it wasn't Pablo, it was Andrew Escobar. He scored an own goal, and he got murdered back in Colombia. He scored the own goal and he got murdered. Now, I don't know if it was Pablo Escobar who got awarded the hit or the fact they were playing America. But that Colombia back then was as it was in the, your Netflix documentaries and all that sort of jazz. But he got murdered for scoring an own goal. Just, do you know what I mean? I mean, we sometimes think we go crazy, which I think we do. And obviously media have got a part to play as well when they absolutely destroy players and stuff. But your player might get a death threat, but nothing ever comes of it, really, does it?
I can't recall it. I think Colombia did get knocked out because of that goal, and that was the main reason behind it. But like you say, obviously all over South America, it's very the football is the biggest thing. There's pretty much no other sport for the South Americans, and it was obviously heavily influenced back then by the likes of the cartels. So obviously, you're playing football, you score an own goal. Anyone does it. I think we've all scored an own goal at some point in our life. And, obviously the biggest level, but for that to happen, it was ridiculous. It
was absolutely brutal. And I remember I'm only 13 and 14 at the time, and I'm like, you don't really grasp the enormity of it, but it was just, it was massive. So just another thing, one other thing that we always look to do as well is to have a look at the previous winners of the tournament and see how they did fared in the following World Cup.
Yeah.
Especially the last one, Germany did it, and they played this time round as well. And they got beat by one of the they got knocked out by one of the sort of newbies, so to speak, and they played Bulgaria. And it's one of those, Germany can top rock up and they'll beat, and it was a knockout game. And I still remember Lechkov's goal when he's gone and he's sort of glanced it in with his bald head. So that Bulgaria knocked Germany out, and at the time that was like a massive shock, because obviously whenever one of the big sides get out, and Germany were one of the big ones at the time, and that was a huge blow for Germany. And you know what Germans are like, and then they've obviously put stuff in place to get better, and they got, I think spoiler alert, 2002 they got to a final, didn't they? But they just didn't do as well in that yet. But that just showed that how tough it is to win a World Cup.
Yeah, well, that was obviously the pinnacle of the German team back then. West Germany, I don't know were they still West Germany back then?
I think they were Germany, weren't they then? Because the Berlin Wall fell after and thingy, didn't it? So
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think you're right. But still they had all of those world class players. Obviously, Klinsmann was one of the best players of the tournament. He will have been up there with the top goal scorers of the tournament. And they still had one of my favorite, Lothar Matthäus, those type of players. So they would have been expecting big things, especially after what they've done, in the previous World Cup. So it was a surprise that they fell, but like you said earlier, there was a few what we consider now, when we look back, world class players back then. You think of Stoichkov, he was unbelievable on his day.
The other one was George Hagi for Romania. He scored a goal. He scored a goal, and I still think it's a cross from this day to this day. In the left wing, and he's crossed it and he's found its way into the top corner of the goal. And that was just like, Gika Hagi was just unbelievable. There was Stoichkov. There was all these players that now, like I said, we talk about icons and, old FIFA and Ultimate Team make a killing out of it. Stoichkov, Hagi, all these players, absolutely bang on. But there was some real, I mean, we're going to move on to the final, but before we finish, we'll probably come up with some other players that we sort of forgot to mention and whatnot. So we'll move on to the final, which was Italy against Brazil. And I think vast majority of people wanted Brazil to win.
We're going to skip over potentially the moment of the tournament. I won't remember his name, but you will. Said.
Oh yeah, Said Al-Awairan.
That's the one. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Describe it for us, Ty.
All right. So the greatest goal I saw during the 90s was George Weah's. If anyone remember against Lecce, there was a corner for Milan. He was playing for Milan. Look, Milan had a corner. He picked the ball from his penalty box and he ran all the way through when he scored. It was what we used to call a solo goal at school. So if you ever played at school, you get the ball, you run past everyone, you score. You could do that at school because there might be one good player, but you don't go past like 6 shitters. So we'd all scored a goal like that. And we're thinking like, we're Baggio. And this lad, right, Saudi Arabia playing, and they were playing Belgium, and you're thinking Saudi Arabia is shit, because they were back then. They probably are now as well, but they were extra shit back then. He picks the ball up in his own half, right, and he goes past about 3 or 4 players, and they're not, the proper tackles, and he's going past the ball. He goes through, and they come this, and Almiron's going to score now. And I was like getting closer and closer, and he scored. It was just like, wow.
And it was a quality finish as well.
It was an unbelievable finish. Like, this guy will just be like, I might Google Said Al-Awairan. Yeah, that's your job. If you're listening, Google Said Al-Awairan and see what he's doing. Ex-Saudi player. But that was a phenomenal goal. And
that's what I mean. I think it was good enough to be living off from still to this day. He'd be going.
I'd be living off that. That's it. I'd retire after that.
Him and the guy from San Marino scored in 9 seconds.
I know. Yeah,
be living off that forever.
Said Al-Awairan. Yeah, that was unbelievable. It's great. It's just it's. I mean, we always say these podcasts are, we enjoy doing them, but part of the thing is I do enjoy going back back memory lane and having a look at those moments and games when you remember it, and it just comes to you like, we've done no research there. I remember the guy's name, remember the goal, everything's just sort of vividly there. But
I was just going to say, so moving on to obviously the final, you will have a better memory, more vivid memory than myself, because from what I remember, it was pretty much of a I wouldn't say a boring game, because there were chances, but with it being when they finish in 0-0 in full time, and I think in extra time as well, many might think that it was a boring game for the neutral, especially when you consider the talent in both teams. So what were your memories of the final?
Yeah, so mine were. I remember before the game, Roberto Baggio had a hamstring injury, and he'd done it against Bulgaria. They took him off, or he got injured after the Bulgaria game, and he had about 3 or 4 games for the final. We know about hamstring injuries take a lot longer than that. Mm-hmm. And he was never 100% fit, but all Italy did was just strap it up as much as he can and you're playing. The other big thing was Franco Baresi was back because he missed he got injured in the first game and he came back for the final. Maldini had been playing centre half. Maldini were the best. I think he was best defender of the tournament. Might have been he wasn't the best. Wouldn't have got defenders didn't get best player of the tournament back then. So Baresi came back, which meant Maldini now moved back to left back, and Baggio played up front with Daniele Massaro. And Baggio was obviously injured. I mean, there weren't many highlights in it. I mean, I remember Baggio had an effort from outside the box with Taffarel tipped over a volley. There was a bit for Brazil, and there was a moment till this day. It must have been about 3 or 4 minutes before the end of 90 minutes. And I'm watching. I'm thinking, right, let's get through because the whole world was back in Brazil. All the commentary team in BBC or whatever we were watching.
Yeah,
there were Brazil supporters.
I was doing the same.
And Brazil had and Cafu and that's what. Sorry, the other thing about Cafu. So Cafu, just before I come back. So Cafu came on because they're right back. I can't remember who the right back was, but Cafu came on. And it's the first time I watched him play. And I was 13 or 14 at the time. And I thought, this guy is running a lot. He was a right back, but he was just literally up and down. Do you know what I mean? A modern day fullback, what you'd call now. But he was just like, I was like, this guy's unplayable. It's unbelievable for what stop. And then moving back to the sort of the 3 or 4 minutes to go, Brazil have had a shot and it's going down Pagliuca's chest. Has caught it, but it's bounced off his chest and it's hit the post. And when it's come out of his chest, I thought it was going in and my heart just dropped. And I could see Pagliuca go over to the post and kiss it.
Kiss the post.
The post. And he could see him take a big, deep breath, go. Anyway.
Too big a moment, isn't it?
That was too big and I was just, so anyway, so then that moved on to the extra time. Not a lot happened next time. I think Brazil probably was slightly top, but Italy's defence stood firm. Got to the penalty shootout. And some of the greatest players that I've ever played the game missed a penalty in that game. And we talk about pressure, and these guys would have played under humongous pressure, but the World Cup final penalties and all that. First player to step up, and people think it was Roberto Baggio missing that really lost it for me, or guy that spoke to thought that was the moment that it really. So Franco Baresi was the first one, so he stepped up and he skied it, and he's missed the penalty. It's gone through, and I think Italy scored, Brazil scored, and I think Italy were behind. And then Roberto Baggio, when he stepped up, even if Baggio had scored, Brazil needs to score the last one, and they'd won it anyway.
Yeah.
So Roberto Baggio stepped up, and he's missed it, and it's all, and everything just pans on him. You can see his ponytail, heads down, and do you know what I mean? I absolutely. And I started crying, and I don't know why I was crying, but I knew why I was crying, but I couldn't explain at that age what the reason was and why I've got an affinity to this team. And I remember my dad was watching, and he said to me, "Why the fuck?" Well, he didn't say that, but he said it, in Punjabi. Why are you supporting, crying for Italy? Your dad's born in Pakistan. Your dad's from Pakistan. You were born in Pakistan. You live in England. The only 2 teams you can support are England and Pakistan. What affinity and what link have you got to Italy? And I said, Dad, you'll never understand. And once I said that as well, he said, and I said, oh, don't worry, there'll be a next time. And he said to me at that time, he said, oh, it'll be a next time. And I thought to myself, and I thought it was every 4 years. And 4 years never felt so far away.
Yeah.
Because you can't do anything. And even now it's you can do it next time. You can't. This 4 years is such a, as a 13-year-old, 4 years and you can turn 17.
Lifetime away,
it's a lifetime away. It's not going to happen. So I'm there thinking, no way, this is like going to be ridiculous. How am I going to get through this? Actually, I wasn't even 13. I was 11. Was I 11? Yeah, I was 11. So just more of a thing. So I was 11. That's probably why I could, 13, 14, probably going to get it a bit more, but 11 years old. And I thought 4 years is like a mile, it's such a distance away. And I cried and I was really hurt. But I just fell in love with Italy at that moment. And that is the moment. And I blame England for it. I think if England played that tournament and I was watching football and, England were involved and whatever, I'd have fallen in love with England. And that's why I always think when it comes to football and says which team you support, it's not where you're from. It's the one that you've got an emotional connection to. Because football, whatever you do with football is an emotional game. If you take emotion out of the game is gone. Do you know what I mean? And it's so go.
Just out of interest, did you support Italy before you supported Liverpool, or Liverpool before you supported Italy?
I mean, it was probably about the same time because it's about the same time as I got into football. But I'd probably say I had a stronger connection for Italy than I did Liverpool. But the Liverpool thing was because my brother and family sort of supported Liverpool, and it was just you had to. I mean, when I lived, it was you had to attach yourself to Liverpool and Man United because they were on. You know what I mean? And I was like, oh, Liverpool, but I'd never saw them win anything. Do you know what I mean? Because I sort of started to watch sport Liverpool after they were good. You know, like So I had to wait 30 years for a tournament for a trophy. But no, so that was for a league even. But that was, I remember that, and that was a real big moment in my life in terms of a football fan. So people don't, you know, like your memory isn't great, but for me, it's always a special tournament, and I always look back at really some fond memories.
And it is amazing, like you say, like, you know, at the end of every tournament, you think, because you build yourself up. It's the pinnacle. It's the moment that you may never ever get to, like, you know, as a player. And, you know, like you say, for Baggio to miss that, like he wasn't the be all and end all of the reason why they lost that tournament, but it is the pinnacle of everything that any kid who ever watches football thinks in their life. And like you say, 4 years is a long time, and because we build it up so much, when it comes to the end of the tournament, you're like, oh, 4 years for another one. So yeah, I do sympathise with you, but think about it for the England fans where we wait 8 years in between a tournament.
But the other thing as well was, I mean, I know England always said, "Oh, we're unlucky in penalties." Italy went through, so that was the second time that Italy got knocked out in a penalty shootout. So they lost 1990 in the semi-finals in the penalty shootout. They lost World Cup '94 on a penalty shootout. Not a spoiler alert, but they got knocked out in '98 on a penalty shootout as well. So, you know, we talk about teams that, you know, so it was, you had to go through, and then 2006, obviously they won on a penalty shootout for the first time. So those sort of things, almost like things happen for a reason, but it was I mean, for the viewers, listeners, you know, please let us know what your thoughts and memories. I've sort of jumped ahead of my question of the day. Unless have you got a question of the day, Chris?
No, I think it is just anyone's memories of before, share them.
Definitely. Yeah, please do. And as always, what we do say, you know, whatever you do put down in comments, we will respond to them and get back to them. But yeah, so really great World Cup for me. Just looking back, obviously tinged with huge amount of sadness, but just looking back at some of those memories, I do follow some of them. You know, you sort of see the odd picture coming up with Franco Baresi really old or Maldini really. Do you know what I mean? And it's like,
yeah,
I remember those. Like Pagliuca, I remember him. You know, played for Sampdoria. You know, Costa Curta, Baresi, Maldini, Albertini, Alberigo Ivani. You know, players like Zola won't come down. You got Massaro's Baggio up front, Donadoni as well from Milan. You know, Dino Baggio, Albertini. You got these players just like Arrigo Sacchi was there. You know, it was just real amazing. You got Dunga, who was brilliant for Brazil, Aldair, Marcio Santos. All these players.
Maradona.
Yeah, the last of Maradona. These players, you know, Stoichkov, Hadji, we've got memories that'll just sort of stay with us. And, you know, you look back and you think, oh, I remember that. And this is part of the reason why we do it. It's probably more as much for us as it is for everyone else. But yeah, so any memories, anything you've got, you know, just let us know. Any great goals, whatever it might be, a famous shirt, anything, pop shirt, your favourite shirt. Yeah. So yeah, anything you want to do, just pop it in the chat and we can do that.
Absolutely. So next up, we have got World Cup 1998, quick maths, where England will actually be involved in this one. So maybe I'll provide a little bit more input in that one.
All right, guys, great.
Thanks for watching, guys.
See you guys. Bye.